Why hello there guys, welcome to I guess another video, because I'm going to be posting this as a video as well, but this will be basically a decent bit of a session covering the latest decklist changes, if any, and showcasing the EldraziDev Mulligan tool and how I track my data. And I'm just going to be going through like gold fishing stuff. I'm going to be explaining what I do and why I'm choosing some things over other options and so on and so forth. But I'm also live, so if somebody asks something, I'm going to be answering it, so just enjoy the ride, I guess. Let's see, decklist here. I'll just plug the Twitch. Alrighty, what's new? 10,000 views, and that is worthy a small celebration. So I'm celebrating with some caffeine-free coffee, and I guess also 150 likes. That's cool. But if you're watching this and you checked my list out, or you're checking it often, thank you so much. It's really cool to be seeing like the fruit of your work come to actuality, and it's just cool to be kind of the driving force behind an archetype. Decklist wise, if you watched my latest video, I guess I talked about Ennis, but Ennis is now released, so Ennis is in the list, but it was also in there. I think the latest change for me was removing Parallax Wave, which I was testing, but you know, a good card versus something I want to test, it was a bit of a no-brainer. Before that, if you've not looked at the videos for a bit, or you haven't looked at the decklist so often, some changes are the multi-purpose tools. I've been on and off Airbender Ascension and Touch the Spirit Realm. Boseiju and Otawara are something that I'm on currently, because more often than not, you're not that gated by the single color pip. It's important that they produce a color, hence Cephalid Coliseum is the win condition, because it's the freest slot to include while it functions in its core function, which is being a colored land. There are some unfortunate scenarios where you have a mana vault and a filter land kind of a start, and then your filter land is one of those colors that your other land is. So for example, you have a Boseiju into Overflowing Basin and so on and so forth. But, you know, sometimes it happens. Other than that, I think the list is pretty stock. I've been happy with Glory's Protector. There's also some neat kind of combos, not for single chain purposes, but rather like multi-chain stuff that I have been experimenting with and kind of stumbled into, I guess. One of the main things being Preston and the type restricted blink effects. Maybe you're familiar with them already, but if you have like, I guess I can show it even here. So for example, if you had like Preston out and then you have an Icewind Stalwart, for example, and you have your Aang. If you have Preston out when you get Aang, what happens is you bring Icewind Stalwart out, and you have two triggers. You have the Icewind ETB and you have a Preston ETB. What you can do is put the Icewind Stalwart trigger on the Aang and have the Preston token, the Preston trigger resolve, and you make a token copy of Icewind Stalwart. Now, Icewind Stalwart is a spirit, illusion. I always say spirit, but it's an illusion. And if this Aang, for example, hits a clone, now you have Preston trigger yet again, blah, blah, blah. But what you could do is have this clone enter as this illusion Icewind Stalwart, and then Preston triggers yet again, it makes a copy of it, and this one could blink this one, and then the token copy could target the non-token copy that is an illusion, because it's not a warrior. Preston does not specify in addition to its other types, which is weird because most cards do so, of these like hack effects. And then what you can do is like produce infinite blinks, because now you have this guy enter and then you make a Preston copy, you blink it, blink it, blink it, and then you can funnel it elsewhere. Now the same principle is true for Glory's Protector. Bear with me if I just stumble this over, because I'm just recording this as I go. But if you have Preston out and you have Glory's Protector enter, what you can do is you have two ETBs once they enter. You have the Protector ETB and you have a Preston ETB. What you can do is resolve the Preston trigger first. Now you create a copy of Glory's Protector that is an illusion and not an angel. You eat the Aang underneath, and then we have only one thing pending, which is the Glory's Protector ETB. And what you can do now is you exile any number of your non-angel creatures. Well, guess what? The token copy of Glory's Protector is not an angel. So you exile this. Obviously it stops existing because it's a token. And now your Aang enters. Now you would get a Preston trigger and an Aang trigger. So basically you get two Aangs here. And now if, once again, you hit a clone and you have that clone enter as a Glory's Protector, now you have the Glory's Protector ETB and the Preston ETB, and you can now rinse and repeat, eat away. And for this instance, if you hit the clone, then you can do like proper stuff. You can have the clone, that you can have one clone underneath alongside with Aang, or the opposite direction, and then you can generate like additional triggers. But still, like, this game state lets you go infinite. That's it for the list, I guess. And then the data project. Well, the data project itself currently is at 123 Aang casts and 146 keeps. This is all is like actual playtests. This is not a simulation. This is not outright games that I track. Like I would play a game of cEDH out and I would track these things. No, because that doesn't really give like data fast enough to actually make a difference, and it doesn't really give the insight that I and many others are looking for, which would be like the conversion rate of a single Aang trigger leading to a win, or rather a single Aang cast, and like how these different variables, like having an additional bonus effect, affect that. For example, does being hellbent increase the probabilities of you winning, or does it decrease them? While you on the surface level might think that obviously not being hellbent is the better option, but there are scenarios where discarding your hand is beneficial. Some really, really solid and understandable concepts is Chameleon. Chameleon has Mayhem ability, which is the kind of fixed whatever madness, like you discard it, you may cast it. So that is an like consideration. If you have an LED start, you discard Chameleon and then you hit Renegade Rallier, for example, and you would go like, oh boohoo, my chain ended. But now you can bring out the LED, you can crack it, and then you can cast the Chameleon and continue. The same logic applies for Extraction Specialist and especially the Renegade Rallier. If you crack your LED, cast an Aang, you discard a 2-drop clone, and your first trigger only has an Extraction Specialist. Now you can continue your chain, whereas if you didn't have those cards in your grave, your chain would end. So this is kind of the consideration point for that type of data, like, and I think it's probably pretty close. especially if you don't include additional mana used for like spell casts. Just to, I guess, kind of give another round. I did this in a YouTube video as well, but I track what hand it was, like what keep, what turn it was when I cast Aang, was I hellbent when I cast Aang or not, what bonuses I had, and the bonus drop menu, I'll just go here. Bonus drop menu has the protective pieces, it has all the soft doublers, it has the heavy doublers, and I've added stuff as I've encountered them. So this includes like foretelling your protector, plotting your visage bandit, chameleon mayhem, and these kind of things. Whether it was protected or not, if it included a delayed flicker engine, this mostly shows up as Soul Herder or Thassa, but this just means like I get some idea of how often maybe a Soul Herder contributes to a win, and I think the data should be supporting that if you find a Soul Herder or Thassa in the middle of your chain, you would be pretty happy to see that, and that gives you the extra security to restart a new chain on your following turn without additional spell casts. Something that I also do, and this is true for real games as well, is that I'm playing these hands as they were tournament games. If I see Soul Herder first trigger and second trigger Starfield Vocalist or Preston, I don't take those because Soul Herder, yes, that is the kind of a fallback plan, a security plan. Like it turns off some, it turns off the other half of the things. Like Thassa, for example, is offline. Loyal Retainers is offline if you decide to end on a Soul Herder and then go to your end step. But on the opposite end, like sacrificing those small probabilities of getting a benefit on your own turn. Generally, this just gives you extra security, and the things that they do in a negative way is that they give a more likely one untap to your next opponent, depending on what type of the win condition it is. If it's a Gigantoplasm, it doesn't matter, you just win at your end step. But if you find a Salvation Swan, then it, delays bits and pieces forward compared to you doing that in your main phase, then getting your double swan in your end step, and then giving one opponent an untap. But honestly, when you look at decks that can win on turn 1 or turn 2, if you're seat 1 and you play a turn 1 Aang, you giving your two opponents their first turn, even if it would be like the best turn 1 that you can like reliably see, which would be like a turn 1 Necropotence, that doesn't really still matter because your triggers just go on top of their Necropotence. So you just do your like flicker chain on top. And Redemption Choir, if it's a continuer and also a delayed blink effect, is when I choose it. Also, if I just end on it and I don't, then I mark it as well that it basically lets me restart a chain or multiple chains, and that's just something I guess can be interesting. Same principle for Brago. Extra spells cast with outside mana, this is just a yes and no question. Basically means what is written. The outside mana refers to having to use mana that was not generated through the Aang chain. So for example, if I were to get a multiple flicker creature chain into supportive parents, I don't consider extra spells cast an outside mana case in that case because the mana was produced through Aang. So this data kind of gives me the insight on like if and when always you pretty much cast Aang at 5 mana, is that if you can still convert into wins, like the wins that are no extra spells cast, win on same turn kind of things, is like the best quality, as it gives the opponents the least amount of time to react, as well as it doesn't depend on your extra cards. For example, like if you cast an Aang and you have 3 or 4 mana left over, and then you use that, then that means that you had a spell in hand to cast. This does not include the rare, like planar guide, for example, because it's not casting spells. Activated abilities are really hard to interact with in this format. So if I were to see like somebody say, yeah, but you know, somebody's gonna trick bind or stifle your activation, one, they would have done that in response to the Aang ETB, and two, when you look at the large slice of the meta, we don't see those cards pretty much at all. Like, those cards are pretty much non-existent. The instance we get a pitch spell, which lets you cast, you know, Tail's End by pitching a blue card, then sure, like all 3 spells are kind of playable in cEDH anyway. The amount of chains and like before the win. Also, if the game ends in a loss, I still include the amount of chains. But this is just like how many chains it was, and this only means if I had to kind of restart the chain. Getting a Soul Herder and continuing your end step is still a 1-chain case, because the first time you cast Aang, you're in your main phase, and if your opponents have no interaction there, they shouldn't have any interaction at your end step. Now, if you have to pass the turn and restart, then it is a 2-chain case, because that means that you have to restart. You haven't won by then, you're restarting the chain. Some maybe fringe scenarios exist where you have the option to start the Soul Herder chain, but you already have, like, you know, some other effect on board. For example, if there's a Brago and the chain goes something like Aang into Brago, and while Brago would restart 10 more chains, I still quantify it as 2, because it means that, like, it didn't actually take the 10 chains to win, it took the 2 chains to win pretty much, because it's like the second time you restart the Aang. Result, whether it was an outright win, a delayed win by the end of your next turn, threatening board, or no win. And then win conditions that I track are Jackdaw, Reynard, Luminous Broodmoth, Salvation Swan, Glorious Protector, Planar Guide, Doubler plus Multi-Chain, in brackets near infinite mana, Soul Herder, Naga Fleshcrafter, multiple Redemption Choirs, and Brago, and other. And this other means basically that it's hard to specify one win con. Like, if there's, you just have it all, like you have a food chain out and then you manage to hit like Gigantoplasm on the first trigger or whatever. In those cases, it's probably better to just go like, yeah, it had these things as the win conditions, and just explain it in the notes. I guess that's pretty much it. I will just munch away my snack and then I'll show you some EldraziDev Mulligans. Okie doke. So this is the EldraziDev Mulligan tool. I have my list there. You could just playtest my deck as well. You could contribute to the data if you want. But this is just a wonderful tool. There's automation For example, with Aang, there's an Aang ETB option, which lets you just flip Aang stuff. There's other stuff like fetch lands, for example, so it's just easier to do stuff. But what we're gonna do now is just go to the realistic simulations, and we are on row 148, and I will click track here, start session, and off to the races. So this is our first hand. This hand doesn't do anything. Sure, we could top deck LED and then cast a turn 1 Aang, but as a first 7, you know, we don't take it. So we mulligan, we look at our second 7. Same sort of a story if this had like 2 lands or something. Sure, but not a keep, go to 6. Then we have some more interesting. This is a keep, but we can first think what this does. Due to Ancient Tomb, something that this hand can do is do Chrome Ox, Ancient Tomb, and Deseret and tutor for example, LED. Then next turn we could untap the Chrome Ox, play our second land LED, and with this we would have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So what we can do is probably cast Melira, but we need to make sure that we have enough colors. And I think we might be 1 color short. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the LED. We have 4 colors, so we'd have no possibility of producing the extra colors for Aang that way. Now, what does this hand look like if we go Mystic Chrome Ox Melira? We don't have access to a turn 2 Aang that way. So it's still a keep. So we will press OK. It's one of the... actually, now that I think of it, no, yeah. For a moment I was like, Guardian of Girapur, we could also play. It requires 1 color less, so we could play that and still be able to cast Aang if we put the Melira underneath the Chrome Ox, but this is just ever so slightly awkward. If we draw into another sort of a like pre-Aang doubler, then we can maybe exile that underneath Chrome Ox, but the choice here is between the Girapur and the Choir. And the Girapur I like more because if we don't decide to go for the LED, then Girapur is easier to cast, and it's definitely going to give us a trigger, whereas the Redemption Choir might not be online. Then I'll plug that it's a win attempt for turn 2. Whether there was something extra, we will find out later, but this is what we do. And what we do now is go here, this was a6. I will already start and write that it's a turn 2, but I will change it if that happens. So if we draw into something that lets us, you know, maybe cast it turn 1, I don't know, then we'll change it. Then we start. Our first draw is an Enlightened Tutor. So now we have access to two tutors here. There's the option to go for, let's see, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Ox, Guardian of Girapur underneath. Then we play Deseret and we can untap the Chrome Ox and we can play Enlightened Tutor. The next turn we have access to Ancient Tomb, Misty, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we find this with, let's see, this is either like this or Tezzeret, Lotus Petal or LED is pretty much the case. So we want to be able to play Melira and cast Aang. So if we go like so, we can save the tutor for the next turn. by untapping the Chromox. We can also produce an extra color by untapping the Chromox. So mana efficiency wise, going for the tutor here is better. We don't want to get the Mox Diamond and that kind of thing. So if we did this and then we find LED, then next turn we draw the LED, we would play this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and untap 8. So what we could do is tap this for a white, this for a green, and we would be one color off still. If we... Let's see, is there another tutor target here? This one is an interesting one. We could... Let me think, if we do this way and we found, say, a mana vault, Chromox, those are still that, yeah. We are still colors short for casting the Gear Repair, and that's because these combined do 3 colors. This would be 4. And if it's a mana vault, then we only have 2, and this lets us do the 3rd, so no. What if we find a Relic of Legends? Let's see, we draw Relic for the turn, then we cast Relic like so, then we find LED, we can LED crack and get ourselves Aang with Relic out. Is there another option to go for Melira before? Is something that I'm thinking. Lotus Petal. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's one short that way. I think the best line here, I'm thinking out loud. Generally, Relic is really good, but not having access to Melira is one thing. Do we have... I'm thinking if we find Mana Vault with Deseret, then we could do Ancient Tomb for the Mana Vault, so we have access to 4 colorless. We have 1 floating, we go for the Relic. No, we're stuck then. And then I guess the other options... Painted Prism doesn't do really anything with Enlightened Tutor. And then our other options are enchantments. And if we go Tezzeret for LED, our Aang gets cast with the LED mana. Yeah, there's no, like, I'm thinking about Food Chain, Airbender Ascension, these things. If we found Food Chain and we did this, we're 1 off for Aang through LED. We are also off for Melira or that. And if our first turn is the tutor and second one is the untap, does that change anything? If we do no, because the Enlightened Tutor, it saves still, like it saves the one colored mana, and that's, yeah, it doesn't make difference there. Melira Enlightened Tutor. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then one more option is the angle for like Phyrexian Metamorph, but I still think Relic is the best here, I think. Because then we could have a combination of like a legendary clone kind of thing. Maybe cast Aang again next turn. If something goes wrong, we can do Aang. I would prioritize going for Melira over Relic if I saw the line, but at least to my brain this does not give that. Really interesting one. I like this puzzle solving. Like Petal is +1 mana. If it's untap, this finds LED. We have access to you get LED, then we can tap this for Melira, yeah, then we untap one thing and it's not enough. We would need a sort of a way to filter the mana, but generally LED is the way. And actually just doing like Pented Prism, it requires 2 colors, so it doesn't work. And if we were to get, I guess, any other option, they don't do that. So let's play it as so. We play those. Exile this. If we happen to, I don't know, we're not gonna draw any mystery cards, so it doesn't really matter. Tezzeret, untap, do that, and we Enlightened Order. And now it was Relic. Let's see if I'm missing anything. No, yeah. This one finds Relic, goes into the top, this goes to the grave. And then we would go for the next turn, so turn 2. Play the Misty Rainforest, fetch. Here, the contemplation would be generally if you want to get the second blue source, or I mean second white source, because you might draw into Flicker Wisp, but I think in this game state, when you get the Relic out and you have a Tezzeret, just getting the Tropical Island is better. Now we have Tezzeret ready to tutor. So our options are these. We have access to 1 and 2 colors, so, well, 3 with this. So our options are between, I want to think if Mana Vault is still enough here. Mana Vault goes here, so Mana Vault is +2 mana, so 4, 5, 6. 6 total mana, so it's 1 short. So we get LED. Did I just duplicate my vision? What? Edit? I don't want to edit anything. Oops. I don't know. There's like a transition window for me. That's great. No, it doesn't matter. I guess we can just let it sit. Cast LED, Tezzeret gets a counter, whatever, doesn't really matter. Go 2 for Relic. And then we crack LED, keep Melira on top, and cast Aang. And now it's turn 2, we are Hellbent, bonuses. We will add Relic of Legends here. There's no Tezzeret window because usually Tezzeret is just there for the mana. This is not protected. And then we can continue. So I guess first Aang trigger, if we decided to go for relic min-maxing and wanted to be sure that Aang is there to be recast, you could float the mana in response here and then let Aang die, get the clone out, but that would mean hitting 7 clones, and I generally prioritize getting a flicker creature. Like if you get the flicker creature, then you can start doing that safely, but I would keep the original Aang around in most cases, at least for the start, because then if you hit a flicker creature, then you might just end up with no Aang on the board. Oh, we have the quintessential interesting choice, which is Gigantoplasm on the first trigger. Ennis is here as well. Like Ennis would let us get more mana. We can't use that mana because we'd be on our end step. And regular clones. Now, if I go for the GP, I have lost 1 mana at the stage. I guess the correct play regardless was to float mana, maybe. Because we could still, there's no leftover mana. Because we can't, yeah, there's really no effect. Like I guess Soul Herder and then activating that, but yeah, you would have to do this before. But you have 1 mana left over. Now I guess the thing is, do you take the GP and hope to get a legendary clone? Next turn we have an Aang cast if we hit it. A flicker creature becomes a little iffy with this, like we don't have anything to go with it, but if we don't take it, the other option is just taking a regular clone and then continuing the chain. GP shouldn't be put into the grave generally. There's the additional upside here. When you take the GP, we have the relic here, which kind of complements the choice. Then next turn we would have 1 to technically Tezzeret tutor again, I think. Tezzeret was at 4, then went to 1, 2, 3. So we have Tezzeret tutor next turn. So next turn we would have access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. I think in this scenario, I would take the GP, and if we hit like a Soul Herder or whatever, we can still cast Aang next turn. Now, the interesting part would be whether you put the Aang into the command zone or the grave for loyal retainers, but in this case, I would go for Aang in the command zone. I need to put Aang here, though, for the like plug to work. We get rewarded, not necessarily something that we really wanted. I guess I should have floated the second mana anyway in response. Now we go for the third mana. We can activate the Sakashima, I guess. VS, does VS do anything interesting here? We get Melira, which is +1 mana. And then GP would enter as a Sakashima. Let me think if we can recast Aang here outright. VS enters as a Melira. Now we are at 3 mana. VS is 4. Sack GP enters back in 5 mana. And then we sack Sakashima and then we continue. No, I will just do this. Ego as the Sakashima. Sakashima dies. Loyal Retainers is online. 4 mana. Oh yeah, artifact for Tezzeret. Nice. 6 mana. GP non-legendary, so it doesn't produce mana, so still 6. Protector. I have 2 GPs, so these don't do anything. 6 mana, so we just take the Elvish Spirit Extraction Specialist now. And then we return Melira, and then we can recast Aang. Take this, ETB, bring out Melira. Now we go to 7 mana. Now we cast Aang. Aang ETB. This one was the original Aang, so this one would die, yeah. So we need to do so that we sack this Melira first or exile it. On the GP, now Aang enters, we have an Aang ETB. GP dies, we have a GP return trigger. Which way do we want to go for this? We can have the GP enter as a spark double thing. In this scenario, I think we keep this one pending. We have this one as a GP ability creature. So Aang ETB, Brennard. Now we have the GP return, and we can have it enter as, we could float the mana in response as well. Aang, we have one Aang trigger, goes to the grave. We could exile this, create a token copy, second Aang trigger, and we have a GP pending. I mean the GP entering, so now we could just get 2 Aang triggers. Wait, why does this show only these? Oh, these are... it was just lagging, I guess? That's weird. Doesn't really matter what we take here. Icewind Stalwart lets us... So we can sacrifice this. It would do... Yeah, it's just the throne here. Because we can still get the GP and the spark double out. Then second trigger. Go that. So we have now 2 in the stack. 3, 2, 1 on the stack. Loyal retainers. Now we can just bring this one out, and we have a bazillion amount of triggers, so we win here. And it's in the same main phase. No delayed flicker engine. Extra spells cast with outside mana? No, because we cast it with Relic. The amount of chains before win, and this is something that I kind of look at in a way where now in this scenario we had the mana produced through the Relic, and we decided to end on the Extraction Specialist instead of getting a clone, so we can recast Aang, right? So even if we restart the chain by casting another thing, the game state that let us win was a single chain, if that makes sense. Like, if I look at the data and I look at how many kind of how many chains does it lead to a winning game state? If I looked at, for example, you have a food chain out, and then would you require 1 chain or 2 chains? Obviously these clump together with just the chains. If you look at the overall win rate of 1 chain, then you would have to factor in that some of those maybe had bonuses, some of those didn't, but you still get the idea. Because this one did not fizzle. We did not manually restart another chain, but it was more of a case where we just managed to produce the mana from the single thing, and then we cast Aang another time because we chose to do so. Win on the same turn, and the win was near infinite mana. Now notes, interesting hand with turn 1 Tezzeret plus Enlightened Tutor. Best route was Relic of Legends plus Aang for turn 2. Put mana to recast Aang and 1. The reason why I don't include the win condition to be Brennard here is that the card that led to the win was not the Brennard the card that led to the win was the Relic of Legends, because that affected our choices. Then we go for another one. So restart. First hand. No spells to cast. Not enough of a payoff to like gamble on it. Second 7. Same story. 6. Same story. No mana. 5. This one is a little more interesting. What this hand lets us do is go for a turn 1 Diamond Lion, and now we would have access to one color only for the next turn. If we draw a land, then we could go for a relic. This one is a serious contemplation. Now, what draws does this hinge on? What does this hand like need? If we do the crop rotation for Ancient Tomb, then we need any land for relic, which would mean generally like a 1 color land, and then we get to do Relic of Legends and Diamond Lion, Aang 3, turn 3. If we don't draw a land, then this hand doesn't do anything. And if we draw other mana sources like Elvish Spirit Guide, then the hand is solid. Let's see, this is a 5. So the bottoms would be like, it would be so lovely to keep the Safi and Loyal Retainers with the relic. But if we just don't hit it, I think there's much better for card hands. Like this one is close, but it's not enough. Unplayable 4. 3. Now our 3 would be basically land, crop rotation probably. What, like if we draw a mana card, no, I think land Enlightened Tutor, land LED is still better. So 2, and this would, now this one is interesting because it's keep 2 lands, and if you keep 2 lands, you're looking to draw like, you know, Enlightened Tutor LED. Good draws that we have here are Painted Prism, those things. The question whether a 1 card hand is better, and the 1 card would be LED, would still need lands, so this is a keep. We bottom everything else, and now we would go for 2, and then we see if we would cast anything. We lead with the Misty Rainforest, but we don't crack it, because we would rather draw a land than draw technically a random card. Obviously the random card could be like one of those payoffs, but I still think you'd rather just get a Tundra and then hope to draw something for the next turn. Precisely for the next turn, like if you draw Grim Monolith doesn't work. No, maybe it's actually correct to just crack now. Tundra is the best choice here. Boseiju. Then we draw turn 3. Usually by turn 4, like I just call it. So we cycle, no, and then next. So no cast. This would be no cast. And then I usually add notes to myself. Notably, I don't mention this as in the results, because if I want the result to give me data on the chains, if I included those hands that did not cast Aang but lost the game, that's something that I like it should be separate. So a potential with Diamond Lion, but opted to get a better. Then we go for another game. First 7 not to keep, so we mulligan. Second 7 looks tempting. I just want to look. What does this hand do? It has the risk of not being able to do anything else than just cast like Mana Vault 2 rocks. I think the hand would be like Tundra Chrome Mox and play Safi. Depending on the turn draws, if you draw land, then you would go for the Mana Vault turn 1. I think this is a keep because if we draw land, we can go turn 1, Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox, Mana Vault, and Safi, and then turn 2 Aang. So we have 2 draws to draw land. If we don't, we still have solid options for turn 3 Aang. So this one I will not include this as a win attempt because the hand and win attempt for me would mean casting Aang. And if this hand actually does not cast Aang as it is, I wouldn't include it. The sad part here is that we have the Gigantoplasm in hand. On the other hand, the positive thing here is that we have the Gigantoplasm in hand when we could just recast it, probably if we get to cast Aang. So anyway, this one was a second 7, you can double check it there. Let's see. Another Wild Enlightened Tutor showed up. So what we can do now is we can Enlightened Tutor and cast Mana Vault. We can also cast the Supportive Parents. 1, 2, 3. Then we would have if we go Safi, then the Enlightened Tutor does not let us cast Aang. Now, if we go for Mana Vault, Supportive Parents, yeah, I think it's something like this. Cast that and Enlightened Tutor. This is close to being the same kind of a relic hand that we just had. But I think it's just LED because if you go LED, what we can do is we have access to 2 extra mana, right? No, actually 3, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then if we hit a combination of Felidar Guardian and Planar Guide, then we can win from there. I don't think there's an option to cast Safi and still have something meaningful. Upkeep, we would have to draw into, I guess, LED outright. Or a filter land. If we drew a filter land, we could then cast this and then do that. I think it's not as probable, so I'd rather go for cast those, cast Enlightened Tutor. Where's my LED? Put that on top. And then next turn, cast LED. If we hit a Renegade Rallier or Felidar Guardian, we can still flicker this one. If we hit Renegade Rallier, we can bring this. So the Planar Guide upside is online, is what I'm trying to say. This also keeps the Mana Vault up for next turn. ordered it so that Gigantoplasm is on top. And now we would go for turn 2. Hellbent, yes. Bonuses, no. I will include in the like notes that there was extra mana left over, and whether that was beneficial, we will see. Looks like we're going to be Flicker Wisping it up. We can bring Safi out, which doesn't do anything. Wicked Jackdaw doesn't do anything, so we get Flicker Wisp. Notably, Flicker Wisp also benefits from us not doing the manual thing, so exile Aang, end step, Aang, restart. N is not good. Now the interesting choice would be like, do we want to risk Aang flipping, but yeah. Icewind Stalwart, Flicker Aang, Salvation Swan. We take the Swan here, exile this, move to our first opponent's end step. Aang has flipped. This enters with the flying counter. Let's put the flying counter. It flickers the Aang. And then we have an Aang ETB. And we have an unfortunate fizzle. Then our chain has ended there. Go to our next turn. Drew a 1-pip clone, which is nice. Now we would cast this, and now we would just include that we had no delayed Flicker Engine, extra spells cast with outside mana. Yes, because this mana is something that we did not produce through the Aang trigger. It would be 2 chain, like, I'm assuming this will win, but you know, like two wins. Now what we should do is have this enter as an Icewind Stalwart. Flicker Aang. Oh, he found the planar guide. That's fun though. Like if this actually, like we had the possibility to go for the planar guide thing. Oh, but we would have needed 2 chains anyways. Yeah, ignore what I said. Protector, we have no access to other chains. This triggers on birds and stuff. So right now we have no option. If we chose to enter it as a swan, then this would still be with flying. So this would be, the question is a threatening board or no win. This does not outright produce a flicker. Like this is not a case where we have access to Ophelia, for example. So I would just say no win for this. Chain fizzle, even after finding Salvation Swan. Drew a clone for next turn. That chain fizzled. So no win there. Then we can do one more. First hand, a Sol Ring which we can't cast. Not good enough. Well, not good spells, so we go to 6. 6 looks like a fine keep, not super good. Like the thing here is, sure we have mana for like 2 mana for turn 1, but we don't have a mana bank. We do have a Delighted Halfling, so with this, assuming we draw a clone, it's decently likely that we get to do a turn 3 Aang. It's a slower hand with protection. Usually I have the benchmark of like a turn 3 Aang being okay if you have protection. Now, if our draws there's a lot of mana draws in the deck. If we draw 4-drop clones, this hand does not really do anything. Like, this is a really slow hand. Next one would be a 5. I would go to 5 because if the hand doesn't give me a protected turn 3 Aang and I'm relying on something that I don't know, I'd rather just, like, a land LED is usually even a better 2-card hand. No mana to cast. That's a 4 with not really anything. Unfortunate. Go for 3. 3 is a keep, and I would keep Delighted Halfling, City of Traitors, and Boseiju, I think. Now we just need 1 mana source, and we have a turn 3 Aang. If we go for land, doesn't look good. So we will keep this. And that's our keep. 3. And let's see. Delighted Halfling. City of Traders. We don't have access to anything. And we draw. Interesting, but it's... We could have Sakashima Student here, but, you know, probably there's not anything good. Turn 4, I still track turn 4s even though it's late, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cast Aang, so turn 4, which is late, not Hellbent, bonuses, Delighted Halfling, and Relic of Legends. It is protected, and now with clones in hand, like the student, I think I would float 1 blue here. 1 blue floating, womp womp. Loyal Retainers. This hand was not meant to be. Extra spells cast, no. Amount of chains was 1, no win. And offered. Well, we can do Bossage plus City of Traitors plus Delighted Halfling. Relic, turn 4 Aang. Fizzle on Loyal Retainers. Oh baby, this one I like. You know why? Because it's turn 2 Aang. Keep, turn 2, not protected. First 7. Ancient Tomb is better than City of Traitors, so we cast Moonsilver Key. Another filter land. There's more blue cards, so I want the Overflowing Basin. Now we have 1 mana floating, we crack the Moonsilver Key. Get ourselves a tasty, tasty LED. 2 green and blue, and then we crack this for white. We have a Chameleon Mayhem, notably. And we want to keep a creature that's beneficial for us on top for Volrath's Shapeshifter. I think I'd rather have Sakashima on top in this case, because if we find Volrath's Shapeshifter into supportive parents, we can just Chameleon then. So I would go for the order where Sakashima is topmost. Turn 2. Hellbent, yes. Where's my Chameleon Mayhem? Not protected. And then we see what happens. Loyal Retainers. For mana purposes, I like it. This might turn off the Chameleon. We don't want to bring the Chameleon out either, because then we don't have access to the Mayhem. We could bring Brago out, but I don't like it. We bring Sakashima as an Aang. Flicker Wisp, a little awkward, but, you know, go to end step. no way to do the chameleon. Now we just need to go for a very delayed chain. First opponent's end step, GP. We could go for Charming Prince, but and we did see Jackdaw Savior here. So this one is interesting in the sense that if our next hit would be like Luminous Broodmoth, then we have no options for winning if we decide to go for the GP as an Aang. The other pointer though here is that if we hit Brennard, then hitting Brennard right now is better. But if we go for Charming Prince, Flicker Wisp was our end step, then this was in our opponent's first opponent's end step, right? So second opponent's end step would be the next one if we decide to go for a Charming Prince. I think I would go for the Charming Prince here. We knew that we saw Jackdaw, so Jackdaw is offline, and currently it's not about the mana anymore, so just like min-maxing a big board isn't actually what we want. So here it would be a very delayed chain, but you know, first one ended on this, then we go to player 1, and now we go to player 2. Brennard, so we take it. Notably, this was the slower option, but you can't think outcome oriented. And now we would sacrifice this. Enters back in as what it was, which is a Charming Prince copy. We could do Sakashima to enter as a GP, but that would be super delayed. So I'd rather just go for the third. Oh, the Sakashima can make things interesting now, though. Would I want it to be a GP? Curious. Super delayed, though. No, I think we would want to have as many clones as we can as regular Aangs, and then, you know, once we have 2 clones out or even 1, we just Flicker Wisp the Sakashima. So just Aang again. 2-drop into grave does not happen right now, but we would still take the 2-drop clone, because then we have Extraction Specialist online. And drawing it for the turn will not happen because it's on the bottom anyway. So this will enter as a regular Aang. Now we have a Stalwart. If we get a clone, we can then have the clone enter as a Flicker Wisp with Sakashima Exile, and then we can get a Brennard pop out, right? If we do the Icewind Stalwart, nothing really changes. Go for this one. We can either go for Aang outright, and then next turn, next one do this, and it requires a clone hit, but I think now I would go for the Flicker Wisp. I would have it exile the Sakashima. Legend Rule Shenanigans, Jiwari Shapeshifter, comes back as it was and dies to Legend Rule. Now we have Sakashima pending and we have an Aang trigger. Have Clever Impersonator enter as an Aang. Ding Dong, bring it back with Brennard. Gets exiled. 2 triggers on the stack. Set up towards Felidar Guardian Shenanigans. Felidar Guardian on the clone. Clone enters as a Felidar Guardian. Enters as an Aang. Exiled, so now we have 3 triggers once we do the Brennard thing. Broodmoth. So close to greatness, but Gigantoplasm is chilling elsewhere. 2 triggers. Glimmer point stag super delayed, holy moly. I guess this doesn't really matter. One trigger left. Mirror image. Habit enter as an Aang, do the Brenner thing. Now we have 2 triggers. Is Redemption Choir online? It is. Do we have something beneficial here? Brago. I guess Chameleon, and then we could have Felidar, Chameleon, extra sack. That one is good. But Chameleon is for CMC, so that doesn't work. Fimage can be good with Felidar Guardian. I wouldn't go for the Salvations one because it's so delayed at this stage. Enters as a Felidar, we have 1 trigger pending, but I would blink the Aang here, so we have 2. Oh no, not the infamous Safi scenario. Painful. If Tsunami was here, now would be the time to revisit this whole shebang. We have 1 trigger pending currently, and we have a Safi, and a Phantasmal Image Felidar Guardian, and a Broodmoth, and a Brennard. Well, now if we Safi away the Phantasmal Image, I guess we should still see the first trigger anyway, so let's do the 1 pending. I think Roaming Throne is good here. Roaming Throne, then we can just bring the Fimage back out anyway. Sure. Name Cat here. Now we sacrifice Safi, targeting Phantasmal Image. Image trigger, Luminous Broodmoth trigger, and Brenner trigger all happen. Choose to not do the Brenner trigger. Luminous Broodmoth, you can resolve. Bring this one out, add a label, flying. Fimage trigger, sacrifice resolves. It was on ground, Luminous Broodmoth and Brenner both trigger. Ignore the Brenner, opt to do the Phantasmal Image here, entering. Fimage enters as a Felidar Guardian. Due to the Roaming Throne, we have 2 triggers. One will target the Felidar Guardian, and one will target the Safi with a flying counter. So this gets reset, and then we have this other Felidar Guardian enter. Oh, what the hell? Oops. Now we have a Felidar Guardian, 2 ETBs yet again. Yeah, we flickered that one. Yeah. Then we can do the Safi yet again, and we have 1 trigger as well. So we can choose to do Aang. I guess we'll just do Aang first. Glory's Protector. Glory's Protector ETB on the stack, while the ETB is... No, we don't need to do that. We can eat up the Felidar Guardian. And then do stack. Oh, what? This is so fucking messy. Sorry for my dirty language. But like Glimmer Point Stag just does weird stuff. Did we have an outright clone? Because a clone just wins. I didn't really look. Oh, we had Visage Bandit. Yeah, Visage Bandit is much better because what we can do... No shuffling. It's just Felidar Guardian and Roaming Throne. So we win that way. That was very convoluted. So delayed flicker engine, we did not have. We had a delayed change, but not an engine. No extra spells, amount of chains was 1 overall, and the result was win by the end of your next turn. I think it was the last player before our next untap. And win condition was Brennard, because Brennard started it all through the GP. Now, I guess multiple things to say about this one. Super delayed chain. But found GP plus Brennard chose to have GP enter as Charming Prince due to seeing Jackdaw before. Finally concluded the multi-chain with the Leader Guardian plus a Roaming Throne. No. And that would be it. Then we can stop the session. We could see what's happened here. We could export some stuff. We could view the data for this deck. Right now, no need for that. I guess that's pretty much a showcase on how I collect my data. And I guess what it looks like currently is this. So win by the next turn is 50%, 26 is win on the same turn, threatening board is 7, and no win is 16.5. Extra spells cast made like a ratio 10% to like, I guess, a ratio of 1 to 10 or 1 to 11, and protected usually like close to 30%. And these are the turns of casting. Nice. Alrighty, guys. That is a summary, or I guess how I go about things. I hope you enjoyed this brainstormy video, and yeah, keep playing Aang, and as you can see, confusing scenarios happen. Think about those and just have a fun time exploring. I'll see you guys next time.